Next, I'm going to bring on stage Phil Runyan. Come up, Phil, and he's going to join me in a conversation about data integrity solutions that are being built on BSV to make our data more trustworthy in the world. Hey, Phil. Phil.
Howdy.
Tell us about you and your numerous ventures in the blockchain space.
Oh, that's a loaded question. Okay, so my journey in BSV started with a data integrity platform for regulated industries, such as pharmaceutical development. The goal here is that the drugs that we take, we shouldn't have to just trust that the R&D that they went through, the manufacturing and the quality assurance, the quality control that they went through, that actually everything ticked the boxes. And so by capturing these moments in real time before the data can be mucked with, a user would then know for a fact that, okay, these are the steps that were taken, and the end user could actually track that because the BSV blockchain is publicly available.
Right. And when we talk about data integrity, data that goes into a blockchain or a database is only as good as the trueness of the data. So this doesn't confirm whether the data is really accurate. It just confirms through a blockchain record that this is the data set that existed as of a certain point in time, right? This is the data set the pharma company provided to show that it tested this COVID vaccine, for example.
Yeah, and another really good example today is Quantum Labs, which you brought up earlier. Yep. They are currently, in Canada, you guys should enjoy this because they just legalized marijuana across the board. They are doing, they are the first EU GMP certified cannabis testing facility based out of Denmark, where now you can test for pesticides and hard metals in cannabis. And they're utilizing blockchain, specifically the Kensei platform by N-Chain, as a means of capturing that data in real time. It comes right off the mass spec, and it's stored instantly on chain so that when somebody says that your pot has A, B, and C in it, you actually know that's the case. And any modifications to that data is captured in a ledger-style format. First entry is when the data was captured. Any subsequent changes are also made available to the end consumer.
Right, and that's just very important to remember. Blockchains are just a new way to keep, manage, read, access data, right? And one of their virtues is public verifiability. So why is scalability important in a blockchain for this? Like what volumes of data are we talking about?
If you look at Veridat, which is basically a company that I helped get off the ground last year, 2 years ago, sorry, COVID timeframe. Basically, they produce about 1 terabyte worth of data as a contract research organization. Juvatech is the initial company that started out. They work with pharmaceutical companies to test their compounds. And they have a very novel approach by utilizing fruit flies. And so instead of testing on 1,000 rats or mice, which can cost tens of millions of dollars, for $500,000, you can test your compounds on like hundreds of thousands of fruit flies at a time. It's very scalable. The problem, though, is that the data, when you capture it on chain, nothing else is really scalable with the exception of Bitcoin SV. Again, we are talking about sometimes terabytes worth of data that can be produced every 24 hours.
Yeah, and when you send transactions or data to a blockchain, you essentially pay for data size, right? The more data you send, the bigger the data size or the increased number of data transactions, you pay more. And that's why when you're sending these huge amounts of data, potentially it's important to have low fees and big data capacity. So you mentioned N-Chain, which is one of the leading blockchain R&D firms in the world. It focuses on BSV. It has one of the largest patent portfolios in the world in blockchain, over 1,000 filed patent records. Kensei is their data integrity platform, which businesses can use to send data to the chain to ensure data integrity. Tell us about some other uses that are being made of that platform, especially for the gaming industry, since there's a lot of gaming companies here.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah.
One of our initial customers who's utilizing Kensei is Crucial Compliance. Crucial Compliance is a player protection platform that integrates directly into iGaming providers. What happens is that they've got hundreds of markers of harm that are totally adjustable based upon your jurisdiction, or better yet, what you as the operator feel is necessary to be able to protect your players. Also, by doing so, protecting your brand. As it turns out, when players end up having problem gambling issues, they stop playing. That's not a very good customer. If you can teach players to play responsibly, flag these markers of harm, they will stick with you longer because there's a level of appreciation and respect there. So with that said, as these markers of harm are triggered, the Crucial Compliance platform then captures that date and time in which these events occurred, and also the user, not the user's information.
You're playing too much, you're losing too much money, for example.
Exactly,
anyway, right?
exactly. Hey, perhaps a timeout is in order here. What happens is that that activity is captured on chain to be able to show in an audit when somebody inevitably says, hey, you guys, we're going to go on the news because I lost my dog, I lost my wife, it sounds like a country song, right? I lost my truck, and you guys did this and now I'm broke. It's like, well, actually, when they go to an auditor comes in to verify these records, you can export that with ease and be able to verify on-chain the exact day and time in which these markers of harm were triggered and what the response was from the operator. It's actually a very low cost and cheap insurance plan for your brand.
Yeah, and this is a use of blockchain people don't think about. It can transform and make more efficient audit and regulatory compliance in the future for all industries. Gaming, right, to be able to show an operator took steps to halt activity for a problem gambler. And nChain's working with another company based out of Europe called Company with a K, which is in the process of being acquired by Moody's, the business intelligence firm. Company provides a KYB service, Know Your Business, where when, let's say, a bank, financial institution is trying to open an account for a new business customer, they have to pull information to verify that customer's identity and records in case there's money laundering problems, for example, with the bank in the future. And they have integrated with the BSV blockchain and Kensei to record the information, let's say, that the bank pulls, or the dates and events, the data set, to the blockchain so the bank can later prove this is the data I pulled on this customer in case a regulator challenges them about whether they've actually satisfied their regulatory compliance obligations. So these are all examples of how just timestamping, as I mentioned, that's what the Satoshi white paper calls a blockchain, a distributed timestamp server, timestamping events in history. This data set existed, was pulled at this point in time, that can be publicly verified later by regulators, really will incentivize, in our view, a more regulation-compliant world of good. Right? What are some other uses for data integrity that you're seeing in the blockchain world and with BSV?
Certainly in the KYC, and again in identity, yesterday I spoke about this quite a bit. Being able to verify that you are who you are, but without having to always disclose all of your personal information, right? There's a very large play there in iGaming, again, to streamline onboarding processes with regards to identity. That's a big one. W2 is doing something very similar. They are a KYC company where through the process of KYB, I mean, KYB is really just a collateralization of KYC for the different actors and whatnot. So they're looking to do on-chain KYC, so once you've been validated, instead of having to constantly pay for these pulls over and over and over again, you can then assess on chain, say, hey, look, actually we see that this was already done and you came out clean, and that will then be used as part of the KYB efforts.
Okay, in our last couple of minutes in this session, let's talk about how companies can actually start doing this, right? Kensei is a platform created by the nChain company that is designed to make it easy for any business to start sending data records to the chain for data integrity. Tell us how it worked, and if you're a company here listening and want to try this, what's the process they would go through?
Sure, I would say one of the biggest benefits to the companies that build on BSV is that we're building technology that is all related to or built utilizing very basic web-based technologies that have been around forever. JavaScript, APIs, RESTful APIs. These are things that a novice developer coming out of a boot camp can begin to integrate today. And that's really the benefit here to when you look at the ecosystem, when you look at the services that are being built, nobody's asking you to go find a REST developer or a Solidity developer that if you get them in the United States, it's going to cost you $500 an hour because there's this big requirement for them. All these services can be integrated at the most basic to advanced levels, again, just utilizing standard web technologies that are tried and true and have been put to use for years, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, and that's true of this data integrity platform, as well as that supply chain solution company I mentioned. A lot of BSV companies, because we're trying to drive adoption as quickly as possible, most companies, when they talk to me and they want to try something on blockchain, don't want to have to develop and write a blockchain application from scratch, right? Most businesses and other industries don't have blockchain developers hanging around, right? They don't want to hire a bunch, but they want to try. So Kensei allows you to essentially integrate with an existing software solution you use, let's say for a data set, KYB software, and send the data or a fingerprint hash of the data to the chain. Unisoft, the supply chain management company, knows most supply chain industry companies use one of several sets of software, SAP, Oracle, supply chain management software. They're not going to stop using that software. So they built a platform to be able to integrate data from that software to the BSV blockchain and read it back so that you get the benefits of the blockchain without having to give up existing supply chain, accounting, regulatory compliance software. So trying to make it as easy as possible because that's the world we live in. All right, Phil, thanks for your time, and we'll bring you back on stage later to talk about NFTs, but give Phil Runyan a round of applause. Data integrity, making the world a better place with BSV.